This youngster was adopted by him 27 years ago. Years later, this is how he paid them back. John Martin, a resolute police officer, takes an unexpected turn of events that leads him to adopt a child called Samuel when he finds a little abandoned black boy in a deserted garage. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. The youngster is raised by John and absorbs the moral principles and compassion that his adoptive father instilled in him. A crucial turning point occurs 27 years later when Samuel, a prominent lawyer now, discovers a long-standing plot that puts John's life in jeopardy. John Martin was an exemplary man of integrity and respect in the sleepy little Midwesterner town of Linton. The people in the town looked up to John because he was a seasoned police officer with an imposing figure, salt and pepper hair, and a gaze that was both harsh and warm. He was a constant in their life, a dependable person they could trust, and a source of security. John was sent one day to look into a tip of strange behavior at a remote garage outside of town. The aged, weathered trees and overgrown plants cast shadows over its crumbling building, adding to the ominous ambiance. Still, John entered with a sense of responsibility that overcame any hint of fear, and flashlight in hand. From a corner in the dust and cobweb-filled room, he saw two brilliant eyes sparkling with anxiety and fright. The boy's skinny, undernourished frame stood in sharp contrast to his large, terrified eyes. He was just 7 years old. The youngster appeared to be of African-American heritage, with rich, dark complexion that blended nicely with the garage's low illumination. His deafening silence made his precarious condition even more vulnerable. John's fatherly instincts were triggered by seeing the scared youngster all alone and helpless. He was kneeling next to the youngster, trying to calm his anxiety with a nice smile and kind words. Even though Samuel was mute or refused to speak, his eyes conveyed a tale of abuse, days spent longing for compassion and nights spent in the cold and without food. John was unable to ignore the narrative. John made the decision to temporarily house Samuel because he didn't want to leave him at the mercy of the system. After his own father, who had instilled in him the values of justice and humanity that continue to uphold him to this day, he called the kid Samuel. He believed that Samuel has the same fighting spirit as his father, but the village, for all its warmth and charm, was not without its constraints. It was impossible to find Samuel a good family. Because of Samuel's color, John had to deal with the harsh realities of societal discrimination in this mostly white community. John was faced with a decision that may change his life during these difficult times. His heart began to change when he saw Samuel, hesitant but hopeful, and how he would observe John while making a quiet appeal with his eyes. Now that he was providing this new life not just a home, but a family, John, the guardian of the entire town, was thinking of expanding his guardianship. It was a choice driven by empathy and the bravery of an officer who saw into a child's deep, innocent eyes rather than just the color of their skin. Following several weeks of introspection, juggling the administrative obstacles of adoption and piles of documentation, John Martin took a choice that fundamentally changed his life. Samuel was formally adopted by him. The timid young kid from the garage, Samuel, grew up to be Samuel Martin, the son of a well-liked policeman in Linton in the middle of the Midwest. Samuel's impression of John changed as time went on. He was more than simply the policeman who pulled him out of the pitch-black garage. He was a father who gave a comforting hug after every misstep, a mentor who shared knowledge, and a guide who led him along the winding roads of life. Similarly, John was saved from the phantom of a life without the pleasures of parenthood by the same person who had saved Samuel from the darkness of loneliness. John took great care to impart in Samuel the principles that characterized him as an officer and a man, the importance of equality, the pursuit of truth, and kindness. Frequently, the teachings happened during supper, on their fishing excursions, or on calm nights on the veranda. And Samuel, a keen student with keen eyes and an even sharper intellect, absorbed the lessons like though they were made of sponges. John was simultaneously reminded of the beauty and wonder found in life's small joys, such as the sight of a rainbow after a shower, the feel of fresh grass beneath bare feet, the excitement of catching a fish, and the warmth of shared laughter. by Samuel with his youthful innocence and boundless curiosity. John experienced a deep feeling of pleasure from Samuel's joy in these moments, which made the challenges of being a single parent worthwhile. Even if their lives appeared perfect, difficulties were unavoidable. It was not easy for John, a single father, to balance the demands of his law enforcement job with the obligations of raising a kid. Samuel found it difficult to comprehend why John was always unable to attend his school functions, or why he had to leave in the middle of their dinners. Their peaceful household started to seem uneasy due to John's absence, anxiety, and unpredictable career. The hard realities of John's job life began to affect their household peace, which tested the link between John and Samuel. Every time he put on his uniform, Samuel battled his dread of losing his father, and John battled his guilt at not being able to protect his son from the risks associated with his line of work. Nevertheless, they discovered resiliency in the midst of this chaos, which is evidence of the love that began in the abandoned garage and grew into a family ties that could withstand the most trying circumstances. Samuel found himself on the verge of self-discovery as he navigated the turbulent journey of puberty, attempting to make sense of his identity as a black adolescent in a world that was predominantly white. He was now Samuel Martin, son of Officer John Martin, a black youngster attempting to make his way in the tiny town of Linton. He was no longer the undernourished little boy saved from the garage. Samuel's sense of disillusionment was accompanied by a revolt. His formerly courteous and obedient manner began to exhibit rebellious tendencies. His standing in the world and the implicit racial biases that frequently tainted his encounters with others in town started to bother him. Samuel's connection with John deteriorated as he struggled to deal with being the only black child in a predominantly white household and town. Linton, a peaceful community, started to exhibit indicators of racial conflict. Samuel's skin tone was unfairly brought attention to by whispers in school hallways, sideways glances at the grocery store, and the subtle yet noticeable disparities in treatment during neighborhood gatherings. John, whose heart was heavy with anguish he recognized but could not fully relate with, watched as his son navigated these murky waters. But a potentially fatal event at John's place of employment marked a sea change in their tense relationship. John was gravely hurt as a result of an improperly handled case. Samuel would frequently find himself in hospital waiting rooms during these difficult moments, pacing tensely and experiencing a panic he had never experienced before. Samuel and John grew closer as a result of the incident because their mutual concern overshadowed their differences. These chilly, impersonal hospital hallways were where Samuel's future was shaped. His father's precarious status was caused by systemic inadequacies, which gave him the drive to study law, combat injustice, and change the world. On the other hand, John discovered that his kid was subjected to racial injustices on a regular basis. He became aware of the disparities in their difficulties while he lay on the hospital bed, battered and bandaged. He struggled with the realization that, in addition to his battles with outside opponents, Samuel was engaged in an internal conflict as he attempted to identify himself in a society that appeared determined to categorize him according to the color of his skin. The event acted as a trigger for a closer bond between father and son, as well as for Samuel's future goals. It was a moving lesson in resiliency, harmony in the face of conflict, and the unbreakable strength of their relationship. It was the start of a journey for both Samuel and John, as Samuel sought justice in the courts while John tried to relate to his son and support him in his struggle against racial discrimination. Years passed like passing shadows, and the undernourished youngster who had been discovered in an abandoned garage grew up to become a prosperous lawyer who personified justice and resiliency. Like his father John, Samuel Martin had risen through the ranks and established himself as a well-liked figure in the town of Linton. His voyage was not without difficulties, though. One day, the quiet town's tranquility was disturbed by a corruption scandal. It implicated some of Linton's most powerful people, names that were revered and even feared. Samuel was shocked to see his father John Martin mentioned, as it was a name he was quite familiar with. The weight of the charges against his father seemed to increase with every document he studied and testimonial he perused. He was plagued by a persistent sensation as he delved further into the details of the case, uncovering a terrifying scheme. Samuel was completely shaken by the devious plan. which was a painstakingly constructed strategy to accuse John of a crime he had not committed. The realization set up a war inside him. His professional obligations, the values he had followed throughout his career, and the oath he had made to defend justice and the truth were on one side. He had a particular loyalty to his father, the person who had given him more than all. John's trust in his black son's capacity to overcome prejudice and make a difference was a return of the integrity and resiliency lessons he had taught Samuel. Their path, entwined with mutual lessons learned, struggles faced, and victories achieved, had resulted in a courtroom triumph that was equally Samuel's and John's. With the shadow of racial tensions and corruption behind them, they discovered that their relationships were stronger, their understanding was deeper, and their confidence in one another was unwavering as they left the courthouse. The well-respected officer and the garage kid had triumphed, and their narrative served as a monument to the strength of integrity, love, and trust. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.